Hello, I'm Keith Allott. I'm from WWF UK, and I'm here to give an update on how things are progressing in the negotiations at Copenhagen here. So the first thing to realise is that we already have some world leaders here. More and more are arriving every day. So what are they going to find when they get here? I think the first thing they'll find is that yesterday we saw really a frustrating lack of progress. There was quite a lot of bad feeling in the negotiations. This was created by, I think, some really legitimate concerns from many developing countries that actually the process around the negotiations was downgrading the Kyoto Protocol track, and they're very concerned about the future of the Kyoto Protocol. We agree as WWF, we want to make sure that the Kyoto Protocol survives in a strong form as a two-track outcome. So that whole issue did seem to get resolved, and there's now been a process created to move things forward. Unfortunately, the pace within that process has yet to pick up, and we really need to see some more urgency injected into the talks, officials making some real progress and ministers making real progress in preparing the ground for the end game of the next few days. And we think the talks have really got to coalesce around 5 really critical issues of substance that need to be resolved. And the 5 key crunch issues are the following. I mean, I guess the first thing is actually the shared vision. What is it that the world is trying to achieve here? And getting some real convergence around that so we can say what this is for. The first thing is that we need to be getting a deal which is putting us on track to stay well below the danger threshold of 2 degrees warming. And in the near term, how do you measure that? We've got to make sure that global emissions peak and then go onto a downward track as soon as possible, we think, by 2015. Without that, we're in serious danger territory. A key element of that has got to be the ambition coming from industrialised countries. And the problem we've got here remains a really pitifully low lack of ambition. We see no movement from industrialised countries during the talks here on the level of ambition of their targets. We're still way short of the range proposed by scientists, and I think we're now looking at about possibly at most 15% below 1990 levels by 2020. The science says it needs to be 40. Without that, we've got a real problem. And what makes this even worse is that the industrialised country targets are riddled with loopholes, which will mean that they do even less than it says on the tin. These loopholes include the hot air surplus, unused allowances just swilling around in the system left over from the first Kyoto commitment period from countries like Russia and Ukraine. This needs to be taken out of the system, otherwise we're in trouble. The other big loophole is some dodgy accounting rules for land use change and forestry in industrialised countries, which will actually allow a hidden increase in emissions from those countries. What the atmosphere sees is what matters, not an accounting trick. These need to be resolved. They can be resolved, but they need political focus as well as technical focus to strip these out of the deal. The third key issue is finance, and again, I'm afraid the lack of clarity and ambition from industrialised countries is the key problem here. We need to have very substantial amounts of new, additional and predictable finance for climate action in developing countries. This needs to be coming from innovative mechanisms such as the auctioning of pollution permits or from the inclusion of international aviation and shipping in the deal. There's been some movement on the latter and some ideas coming forward, but it's still not clear enough on sources and scale, and too many of the industrialised countries are holding back. This has got to change. This is what leaders are for. They need to move this one forward. The fourth key issue is the legal form, the whole discussion about whether we do retain the Kyoto Protocol and have another legal track, a Copenhagen Protocol, a Copenhagen outcome running alongside that. We think as WWF that that's really important. It's very dangerous to go to a single track approach, and I think over the course of the negotiations the push for a single protocol approach luckily appears to have been pushed back against really quite effectively by many players, including the small island states and the developing countries. So it seems as though the discussions are focusing more along a 2-track approach. We think that's good, but it needs to be retained and kept in place over the rest of the week. And the final key issue is, it sounds very technical, but it's basically, in the jargon, MRV, how you can actually bring in emission reduction pledges and offers from developing countries and have them formally recognised in the international process in a way which gives all sides confidence. That's a big political issue for many countries, but that we need to see some movement on that as well. So 5 key issues, crunch issues, that's a big big list already that needs resolving at a high political level. We don't need any more being added to that list. And unfortunately, we've actually seen some attempts to add more crunch issues to the list, which could overburden the last days of the talks. One particular issue is the concern about RED, reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation, which is a really important issue here. The problem is that some countries are now pushing text in which would include sub-national baselines rather than a national approach. The problem with sub-national approaches is it leaves it open to abuse in terms of deforestation simply moving around within a country. That means that the integrity of the emission reduction activities is much less, and it could create another loophole. That's the last thing we need right now. So we need to nail that one down, and politicians need to act to close that emerging loophole down quickly before it gets to ministers, to heads of government. So the final outcome we're looking here from here is concise, precise text written in clear legal language. I think it's clear that we're not going to get every single detail finalised here. That's absolutely understood. But we need to get these crunch issues resolved here and in a legal form. So as ministers look at this, I think it's really important to just not forget the overarching imperative of the climate science. The clear warning from the climate scientists and from all the number crunchers who've looked at the emission reduction pledges that are on the table is that if things stay as they are, we're heading for 3.5, 4 degrees or more. That's off the scale. That's catastrophic. So this requires real urgent attention. And what we've not seen is that creative thinking and that ambition coming into the talks. If the leaders can't do it, they've failed. We need to really ramp this up. So let's hope that we see a new ambition coming forward. And I look forward to giving you a new update later on this afternoon coming from within the Bella Centre at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Thank you.